Hi, this is Professor Salmon with a brief orientation to your first week of lecture and readings. I shared with you some of my background in the introductory video, and what I'd like you to do is to think about your biography and your interest in the Comparative Health Systems course. If you've had any experiences internationally and observed some systems or read about some different countries or traveled someplace, if you can kind of share that in a biography, a brief 1 or 2 page biography that we can put on the discussion board so that everybody in the course has access to that, and we can foment some interactions among you, particularly if you might have mutual interests. Like last year, there were a couple students who had work experiences internationally in HIV/AIDS work, and they were able to come together after reading these biographies. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the book by Johnson and Stavkoff. I've looked at probably a dozen comparative health systems course books over the last decade, and this is the most recent. I ended up meeting Professor Johnson, he's from Michigan, at the American Public Health Association, and I found this book to be rather well done in terms of its format as well as its detail and timeliness. So I've asked you to go ahead and buy the book, hopefully through Amazon where you can get a discount, and to stay constant in the reading of it. It's really worthwhile. The other thing is T.R. Reid is a Washington Post writer, and he put out a book which probably was the only book that got a lot of attention during the debates over health reform with President Obama. As I mentioned earlier, not a lot of people look elsewhere for lessons for us to go ahead and revise our healthcare system. But Reid's book was about experience of obtaining medical care in different places around the globe, and it's very well written, and a number of people have praised it in good reviews. So by all means, the article that I asked you to read will give you an introduction to that, and you may want to look at the book that he has published also. The first lecture will give you elements of an analysis that we can use throughout the course. It's rather detailed, but it gives you an overview and an orientation that'll be very worthwhile as you look at different countries. One of the things to be aware of, and I mentioned this in the lecture, is our U.S. bias. We tend to think that everything that we know as health professionals here and projected out around the world, without realizing that medical education is different from country to country. Licensing and professional regulation is different. Roles and relationships of doctors, nurses, and pharmacists and other practitioners are different. Many countries around the world don't have the technology we do, so all the people that we see working in hospitals are not replicated. And so, again, understand your U.S. perspective and bias, not just in health policy, but in the way the health systems are structured and organized. That's something to keep in mind. I mentioned my friendship and my mentor, Professor Milton Romer from UCLA. I rely upon his structural analysis to compare health systems, and I want you to be aware all the time of the big picture of healthcare systems and what that means. And as you go around the world looking from country to country, it's a big place. There's a lot of differences. What we have to do in our analysis of things is try to get the similarities and try to go ahead and have a sense of what these things mean in health and healthcare delivery as we travel from place to place. If you have traveled in different countries, even if it's just in the proximate areas of the Caribbean or Latin America, reflect back on that travel experience and think about what you observed in terms of the differences of history and culture and the social situation, and what was happening there in terms of your observations of people's health care. If you had experiences being sick in a foreign country and went through the healthcare system, that's even more fun in terms of being able to compare and contrast to what we have going here in the United States. So again, with that as an orientation, take a look at the readings, be diligent in thinking about the issues, keeping at that big picture or global level. And as you get into the analytical frameworks in week 2, you'll see some elaboration and start to get the fact that people look at these issues through different lenses, and that lens is important for you to be aware of too, because again, as I mentioned, we all have this American bias on the world, but in understanding healthcare systems, it's important to see things as the people there see them. In week 3, we talk about the typologies and dynamics and perspectives so that you start to delineate a little bit more how people see things. I've cut down on the readings. They're a little bit more difficult than maybe you're used to if it's new material. And every couple of weeks I'll give an orientation like this so that we can give you a sense of my expectations for how you handle the readings. And let me also say that we're going to be arranging for meetings of the class, and if you can let me know in an email what's convenient for you, whether you like mornings, afternoons, or an evening, when the class can meet and we can have some face-to-face interaction. I'd like to get to know you all personally, and I think the interactions that you can have with each other, because teachers teach students and students teach students, and believe me, I've come to know that students teach teachers, and I want to learn from you also if you've had good experiences. By the 4th week, when we start looking at the U.S. and then the Soviet Union, Great Britain, and the countries most like us in terms of health insurance mechanisms, Germany, Japan, and Canada, I'll give you another orientation to that. In the meanwhile, enjoy the readings and get back to me with the bios and also the times available we can arrange for class meetings. And thank you so much.